Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 has had a bit of a turbulent launch. And I talked about some of the issues when I was invited out to the Grand Canyon to do an initial review / first impressions. Wasn't much of a review, but they had some of the issues there that they're having now. And I didn't really intend for that review to be negative. Just a fighter pilot. We debrief. We talk about what's good. We talk about what's bad. My overall first impressions were that it was a great time and the experience was fun, but there were some things I didn't like, and there's still some things I didn't like about this game. So full disclosure, Microsoft was not mad at me. And what's cool about what they do is they don't ask for reviews. They don't ask for positive reviews. They don't ask for negative reviews. They just said, hey, mover, here's a copy of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Enjoy. And so they provided this, and I'm doing a review now. I was unable to get this game to work on my PC. I can get it to work on my laptop, which is not a flight sim setup, and I can get it to work on the Xbox Series X, but for whatever reason, it doesn't work on my PC. I've tried reinstalling Windows. I've tried Visual C++, redistributed. I know too much stuff about computers now from all the things that I've tried and failed. It just doesn't work. I don't know why. No matter what I do, I get the same error message. Sometimes it's 15 seconds, sometimes it's 20 seconds. But bottom line, this review has nothing with VR, and it has nothing with real flight sim characteristics or even flight control characteristics, because all I've done is controller stuff on the Xbox Series X. And that's what I'm going to talk about. Some of the things I like, some of the things I don't like.
3, 2, 1, flight off.
So let's talk about the positive things, because I don't think it's as big of a flop as people make it out to be. It is a great game. And people always say, what's the difference between a flight sim and a game? And they'll even get mad at me when you call it a game, but it's a game. A flight sim, to me, is something that the FAA can go, you can log flight training or flight time in, which I think X-Plane is the only one that actually has that certification. And even then, flight sims are tough to replicate real life. So they have made Microsoft Flight Sim more game-like with this iteration. The things that are good, I think the graphics are better when they work. You'll see at the bottom, it says requires internet, and that's been kind of the biggest thing, is everything is cloud-based now, and that is really driving people crazy because, yeah, I've got a gig internet, and sometimes it loads, sometimes it doesn't. That part's kind of, But I tried it. I tried both free flight and I tried the missions, the career. And I'll get to why I don't like the missions part here in a second. But I tried the career, and honestly, it's more fun than I thought it would be. The free flight stuff is the same as the old Microsoft 2020, except the graphics are a little better. It is like the grass is better. You get the tire marks. You can get out and walk around, which I thought was really cool. There's a lot of increased, you can tell physics, you can tell like the aerodynamics have increased significantly, and they're actually affecting, turbulence affects you, stuff like that. The air traffic looks a little better. The ground traffic actually looks a little better too. And it just overall feels like it's upgraded and the graphics are a little bit better in general. For the career, I was one of the ones that came out and said, I don't like this idea. And it's not that I don't like the idea of a career. I don't like the idea of the missions, which is what I want to do, being locked behind a career, because I've already done a career and I don't have a whole lot of time to slog through missions. But I tried it because one of the developers assured me that it was something that you could speed run through in no time.
That's the reason why we built the career this way, is like you have to unlock those certifications and those things. But for someone who is not acclimated,
yeah.
They will need to do the trainings and even sometimes do several of those missions in order to really feel good with just flying a plane,
Yeah.
But if you are already comfortable, so typically, I do not do any of the training. I directly go to the exam, and thanks to this, you basically bypass all the trainings, and you can drive your way pretty fast to the type of activity you want to do.
I went out, created my character. There weren't many that looked like me, but I tried my best and made a zero to hero type character. I went out and did the discovery flight. Same thing I did when I did the initial impressions the first time. So it wasn't that big of a deal. It was very similar to that. But after the discovery flight, I jumped straight to the check ride. And all the check ride is one successful lap around the pattern. Again, I'm flying with a controller. So, yeah, I mean, as far as from a gamer's perspective, I think this is a great introduction to simulations and aviation. Like if you knew nothing about aviation, you could hop in here and just have fun and build your career like any other game. I think that part is pretty cool. But I got my PPL, and then the first thing it unlocks is the ability to take people flying, which is realistic because that's what I did when I got my PPL over 20 years ago, 2002. Wow, I'm getting old. But it's what you do. You take people flying. So they create these missions, and I was impressed with how many missions there are and how, I'm not going to say realistic they are, but how close to what kind of a real world thing would be, because that's what happens. You get your pilot's license, everybody's like, hey, let's go flying. You go out and you go look at a certain thing because everybody wants to see their neighborhood or they want to see something else. And you go do that. I went to Slidell, to Eden Isles, which is a place here in the area, because that's what it wanted me to do. So it was cool that it knew local areas and landmarks. And then the second mission was to go out and do a flight to AMA, which I thought was really cool because that's a grass strip that I used to have a hangar at and I used to fly out of, which was really cool that they even use so many grass strips. I mean, I think there's a lot of emphasis and focus on not all just the major airports, but like off the beaten path, grass strips, stuff like that, which was really cool. Did it look anything like AMA? No, but that was the thought that counts, right? And then I did my commercial pilot's license because you can't get to the helicopter until you get enough money to pay for the lessons or pay for the certification, which you're out of money by the time you take your first check ride. So you go to your commercial, and that, for whatever reason, warps you to Van Nuys, California, is where you take your check ride. It's another pretty easy, basic check ride, flying from point A to point B. You pass that, and now you can start doing missions, in which case it was all ferry missions, taking aircraft that owners needed, bringing them from one place to the other. Not bad. First couple are interesting, and then it kind of gets boring. I can see the utility in it, and I can see how if you really were somebody that's a completionist, that you love the idea of starting from zero to hero, you would have a great time. I think the career itself is not a bad thing, and it's a good introduction to somebody who doesn't know anything about aviation in general. So overall, those are the pros. I think it's a good start. Hopefully they're going to fix the issues, but let's talk about what I don't like. The cons, the negative, and this is probably going to get me a lot of hate mail, and I'm sorry, but number one, biggest con is what I just talked about, the career, the missions being locked behind career mode. When I brought that up to the developer, he took it very personally. He was like, no, I want you to understand the sim before you move on to missions, which I think is complete nonsense because it shows a level of arrogance of not understanding your audience.
When you're a simmer, you play a lot. So basically, it's this issue we are talking about. It's like in 6 hours, you guys, you will gonna have open almost everything. I mean, everything you wants to have open. So it's not like if you would have to farm during 3 weeks before you can even start to do the Canada experience. So on the lifespan of the game, it's not a big deal. You will basically, have to wait for, I don't know, 2-3 days of play before you can actually, maybe, depending on the amount of time, but basically it's a weekend.
Most people who do flight sim are either real pilots or have been doing flight sim for so long, they don't need this basic tutorial. And the people that have got, messaged me back and said, well, then don't play it. Well, I'd love to not play it, but I would like to do missions too. DCS and other games have the ability to do instant or quick action missions without doing full campaigns. This is not a new concept. And the problem is where he said, yeah, it's going to take you just a little while. Well, I've been, other than the hours I've spent trying to just install the game on my PC, sitting in my recliner playing this on Xbox, it has taken a while because you can't just hop in and go to the helicopter and go do helicopter missions. You have to get your PPL first, which is nonsense because in real life, you don't need to get a fixed wing PPL to get a commercial. That burns through some of your credits. Then you need to go get your commercial because you got to earn your money back. And once you get that, which that burns some money to go do that check ride, even if you skip the training, now you have to go do some of these ferry missions to get your money back. If you skip parts, if you skip to straight to taxi, straight to takeoff, you skip the en route cruise part, which is, 10, 15 minutes of droning, you don't get the full 3,000 credits that you're earned, and you get like a couple hundred, which means it takes twice as long. That's nonsense. There is no reason you should be doing fixed wing stuff if you're a helo guy. That's not how the real world works. And the people that are like, well, you must not want it bad enough. I don't. It's a video game. I want to just have fun. I want to go do firefighting missions. I want to go do crop dusting. I want to do all the new stuff that it's added, but I don't want to relive check rides I've already done, which, by the way, for those of you that say this is realistic, I guarantee you your private pilot check ride is more than just one lap in the pattern. Otherwise, you've got the easiest DPE on the history of the planet because that private check ride was just one successful pattern. That's it. You didn't learn anything. You didn't demonstrate any proficiency in anything. I did it with a controller. What is it? I mean, it's nothing. It's nonsense. The commercial check ride is supposed to be the private check ride with higher PTS standards. And what is it? It's point A to point B from Van Nuys, California. Initially, you start in your hometown or some semblance thereof, and then they warp you to Van Nuys. Then they warp you to Europe to go do your first ferry flight. It's just disjointed. Like, who came up with this? It's you really don't need it. I mean, you really don't. It's a good introduction to people who have never done flight sim, who just want to, casual gamers, because that's what they've turned this into a gaming side, which is fine. That's how games work. But show us some love. Give those of us that just want to go do a couple firefighting missions or an airline trip with a little extra cutscene, let us go do that. There is no reason for any of this stuff. The amount of time suck it would be to get from 0 to where I am in real life is probably going to rival real life. I mean, you'd have to, get all the credits. You have to get all the check rides done. You have to do all this. And it's not realistic. I'm sorry. That's just not how it works in real life. Yes, there is a progression, but this ain't it. So for those of you that are like, well, you can't do it here, you can't do it in real life. Nonsense. It's not close. I've got an ATP. I know. I was in the military. I skipped half of it. I did an equivalency test. So, I mean, where's that? There should be a DCS equivalency if we're going to go realistically. I mean, it's not that hard. Like, that's something they can easily fix. But more importantly, they need to fix the graphics because when it's getting into the loading and like some of the trees look worse than they did before, which I didn't know was possible. Trees seem to populate in places that they shouldn't. The graphics seem to create textures that don't exist. Like there's some places that are roads that have turned to grass, and I don't understand why. So I think they've taken a step back with the idea that everything needs to be server side. They need to have the option to have this offline because it's having so many problems. And I wish I had the option to just install the damn thing. I can't get it working on my computer. I'm sure other people have this problem as well. I've got a good system with a 4090 and everything has been a fresh install from Windows. So there's no reason, which by the way, every other game works. Every other game works. So this is the only one. So why? What is the difference here that it just doesn't like it? So that's my biggest complaint is I think it feels more like an add-on than a new game. Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 felt like a brand new game and a leap forward. And the graphics were awesome. And yeah, it had a little bit of a struggle launch, but it was such a leap forward and a leap ahead from where they were that you could overlook it. This feels like an add-on. Is it worth a purchase now? I still think yes, because I still think overall, even though I vehemently disagree with the missions being locked behind the career, I still think the career is fun, and I think people will enjoy it if that's what they're into, if they like flying Cessnas and, you know, that's their thing. I don't see a problem with it. I just am asking for one small thing. And I don't think the argument that, you know, well, it decreases from one if you have both, that doesn't make any sense. Worry about your own stuff. Like if you want to go fly a career, go fly the career. It doesn't matter what I do. I don't care if you fly the career or not. I just want to go do cool missions. I had cool missions with my buddies. Multiplayer missions needs to be a thing. And that needs to be next because, you know, doing stuff with your buddy is a lot more fun than solo campaign, single player, you know, career mode or whatever. But it should be both. If you, and it doesn't affect anybody. Like, well, you know, if you have that, then what's the incentive? There is none. What's the incentive to play any game? You do it for you. Don't worry about everybody else and let people decide how they want to play this game. Just like free flight. Free flight exists. And if free flight had the missions, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But other than that, I think it's a work in progress that I think will get better. I think eventually they'll figure it out. And I hope they do. I'm rooting for them because I like the developers. I like the people that I've met. And I think Jorg and Asobo and those folks are very passionate and they are listening. And I do think they'll fix it. Oh, by the way, Jorg, you've promised me New Orleans. This New Orleans is from 2018 or 2019. Like that's unsad. It is. We're pushing 2025. That new airport has been there since 2018 or 19. And it hasn't even broken ground in this version of the sim. That's unsad. That means a lot of stuff is outdated. So whatever you're using to create the airports and maps and stuff is about 5 years out of date. So please do that. But I'm rooting for them. I hope they make this better. I'll continue to play and try, but it just needs a little work. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. Hope you guys enjoyed this quick review. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.